All right, so here's one of those ironic twists of fate. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton gave a major speech today on internet freedom and why it's important to make sure those freedoms are available around the world. Meanwhile, just across the river, the U.S. government asked a federal judge to require Twitter to turn over confidential information about the use of its services by 3 people associated with WikiLeaks. So, if I understand this right, the U.S. government is championing freedom of information, except when it's in secret cables made public about the U.S. government. For more now, I'm joined by investigative journalist Webster Tarpley. And Webster, let me just lay out a couple different contrasts here. The U.S. government wants to train human rights workers to be able to take information off their phone if they're detained by police. But then again, they go after U.S. citizens, their cell phone records, their computers. What's this all about?
Well, there is hypocrisy and a double standard, but I think the real double standard is Hillary Clinton is out there today posturing about internet freedom, whereas the head of her regime, Obama, has demanded and presumably received the ability to turn off the internet in the United States. What Mubarak did in self-defense is what Obama can now do. That's the big hypocrisy. Hillary gives these speeches about once a year now, right? So she's out there announcing that the U.S. government is interfering in internal affairs of countries. So far, they're tweeting, State Department guys are tweeting in English, French, and Spanish. They've added Arabic and Farsi, so they're going big in Persian language into Iran.
Absolutely. And
they're adding Chinese, Russian, and Hindi, so all these other targets that opened up. And she also announced, she says it's a venture capital approach with 25 million on top of the 20 million they had already given out to people like Falun Gong to find a way to break the Great Wall of China, which is the thing that they're targeting.
And that's so interesting because, you know, you talk about the U.S. using the internet to either work with these other countries, but a lot of leaders, a lot of people are looking at this and saying, hey, wait a minute. Maybe the U.S. should step back a little bit, including earlier today a suggestion by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He said that the U.S. and Western allies should not use, for example, Egypt and Tunisia, which use the internet, but they shouldn't use these revolutions to try to stir up democracy and protests in the Middle East, that they should instead, you know, back off. I'll play you what he said.
We are convinced that calls for revolutions are counterproductive. We've had more than one revolution in Russia, and we believe that we don't need to impose revolutions on others. We don't think that we can tighten the screws or take sides.
So clearly the U.S. has not gotten this message. You were just talking about this.
No.
They just launched this new website, or they just launched a new Twitter website in Farsi. I want to show you real quick a couple of tweets that they showed. They said, you know, tweet, we want to join in your conversations. They said, U.S. calls on Iran to allow people to enjoy same universal rights to peacefully assemble to demonstrate, just like in Cairo. Talk about this.
They support all revolutions but the one here. The thing that Hillary Clinton talked about is digital activists. In other words, there's a youth bulge around the world. They want to mobilize these people. I think what she's got in mind is a secret army of hackers and indeed trolls that will be the shock and awe of the new decade. And this is what they were able to deploy in Egypt. It's simple. You get the rich kids using Facebook and Twitter. You get the rich kids into the square. You put that on television, you convince the rest of the society that the government is deeply unpopular, and the revolution takes off. It's a way to con, manipulate, and dupe an entire society. And this is what a color revolution or CIA people power coup or postmodern coup actually is.
Let's switch gears now and go to across the river to federal court. U.S. prosecutors today asked a federal judge for Twitter records associated with WikiLeaks, associated with, you know, Julian Assange, Bradley Manning, you know, and another supporter. Do you think Americans care about this hypocrisy going on here?
Well, look, I would say, first of all, I condemn the Department of Justice for harassing these people and trying to chill free speech. But on the other side, we're dealing here with a CIA limited hangout, a self-exposure operation in the form of WikiLeaks. This is Assange is now the Justin Bieber for a whole generation of nihilists around the world that are the shock troops in this U.S.-steered attack on the nation-state in favor of the empire across the world. What he's been doing is putting out very carefully selected and indeed doctored stuff that attacks who? Not the U.S., not the British, not the Israelis, but Ben Ali, Berlusconi, Putin, Gaddafi, the president of Argentina, Karzai. In other words, the whole CIA enemies list.
Well, I think it also puts some information out there that the U.S. government clearly didn't want out there.
That everybody
doesn't
knew. That everybody knew. Let me just point to one thing. Cass Sunstein in 2008 said, it's time for the cognitive infiltration of anti-government movements. WikiLeaks is the Cass Sunstein cognitive infiltration that was planned, and it's doing that job.
All right, investigative journalist Webster Tarpley. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thanks for weighing in.